My Republican friends have said that they're not willing to do revenues, and they have repeated that on several occasions. My hope, though, is that they're listening not just to lobbyists or special interests here in Washington, but they're also listening to the American people. Because it turns out, poll after poll, many done by your organizations, show that it's not just Democrats who think we need to take a balanced approach, it's Republicans as well. The clear majority of Republican voters think that any deficit reduction package should have a balanced approach and should include some revenues. That's not just Democrats. That's the majority of Republicans. You've got a whole slew of Republican officials from previous administrations. You've got a bipartisan commission that has said that we need revenues. So this is not just a Democratic understanding. This is an understanding that I think the American people hold, that we should not be asking sacrifices from middle-class folks who are working hard every day, from the most vulnerable in our society. We should not be asking them to make sacrifices. We're not asking the most fortunate in our society to make some sacrifices as well.
Pretty straightforward. He just basically lays it out, and the part that is popping the eyeballs of the Republicans is every time he uses the word revenues, because that's code, that's Washington speak for what Republicans call tax increases, even if it means plugging loopholes. In fact, Jacob, I want to go back to that JFK clip that we used yesterday, not right now, but within the next couple of minutes. But if you've got the second clip from Mr. Obama, from President Obama, if you could play that right now. Here's another comment that he made this morning in his press conference.
We're also saying to folks like myself that can afford it, that we are able and willing to do a little bit more, that millionaires and billionaires can afford to do a little bit more, that we can close corporate loopholes so that oil companies aren't getting unnecessary tax breaks, or that corporate jet owners aren't getting unnecessary tax breaks.
Now, this is making the Republicans hysterical. And he one of the comments he made earlier is, he said, one of the reasons these guys, they painted themselves into a corner by previous statements that they've made, which is the statements that they've made are variations on read my lips, no new taxes, or, don't worry, Mr. Koch, you'll be able to depreciate your corporate jet over 5 years, or your personal jet if he has one. I mean, there's a number of billionaires in this country who have personal jets. You'll be able to depreciate it over 5 years instead of 7 years. We're going to keep that loophole in place. Not to worry. That's what the Republicans have said to their patrons, to their owners. And here you have a Democratic president who is saying, not so much. No. Now, frankly, speaking for myself, I would be happier if, instead of hearing him say we're going to cut domestic programs, and he went into a long thing about how he was where the cut's going to fall, that he was willing to cut out of Medicare and Social Security, out of domestic spending, but he was not as willing to cut out of military spending, which reflects, I think, the extent to which he's saying the polls say 80% of Americans want a balanced approach. So he's watching the polls. He should be watching the polls about how many Americans support our military misadventures and more money for the Pentagon, which has lost $2 trillion. But as I played yesterday, I want to do it again. This is the second Nixon-Kennedy debate. This is Jack Kennedy laying out how he was going to lower the top tax rate from 91 to 74%, but actually increase the amount of money that's coming into the Treasury by closing loopholes. The loopholes specifically that he wanted to close were the loophole that the Wall Street fund managers and Paris Hilton are using right now, the sitting on your butt around the pool waiting for the dividend check to arrive loophole, also known as capital gains. Why should people who make their living with money pay a lower tax rate than people who make their living working with their hands? But right now, the top tax rate, if you make your money with money, is 15%. If you make your money working with your hands or your mind, the top tax rate is 36%. And Kennedy was saying that's wrong. We're going to change the capital gains tax, and we're going to change the way the businesses can take tax deductions. So what Kennedy is saying is we're going to raise revenues, which is what Obama is calling for. Here's Jack Kennedy.
Third, I think it's possible to gain $700 million to $1 billion through tax changes. which I believe would close up loopholes on dividend withholding, on expense accounts.
There you go. I mean, very, very simple. You know, we're going to go after the Paris Hiltons of the world, and we're going after the businesses of the world, and we're going to say, you guys have to pay your fair share because you're benefiting from the prosperity of this country. Now, here's where Jack Kennedy and Barack Obama differ, where they go off in different directions. Obama's saying, and we're going to cut domestic spending. And what Kennedy said was, you know, we're going to raise taxes. And keep in mind, the country had a deficit at that time, and he was proposing a balanced budget. He said we're going to raise taxes in order to stimulate the economy, in order to increase spending, which, by the way, is what he did. Here he is.
So in my judgment, we would spend more money in this administration on aid to education. We'd spend more money on housing. We'd spend more money, and I hope more wisely, on defense than this administration has done. But I believe that the next administration should work for a balanced budget, and that would be my intention. Mr. Nixon misstates my figures constantly, which is, of course, his right. But the fact of the matter is, here is where I stand, and I just want to have it on the public record.
So, you know, raise taxes, increase spending. that was Kennedy's platform. He ran on it, and he won on it, and he did it, and it made the country bigger and stronger and better, and we sent, you know, men to the moon. And amazing thing. So anyhow, the president is engaged in this game of chicken. In the meantime, over in the Senate, Mitch McConnell and Harry Reid are working out a deal, shall we say, that will allow the Republicans to say to their base, I didn't vote for raising the debt ceiling, because the debt ceiling, you know, it's a phony crisis to begin with. There was never any crisis about raising the debt ceiling when George Bush was president. The debt ceiling is a phony crisis. It's manufactured in D.C. The president said that today in his press conference. It's true. It's a phony crisis. So they can, but they've turned it into this big deal, and now they can't back away from that. They can't say, "Oh, we were just lying." So they've got to say, "Well, we voted against it, but the president vetoed our vote against it, and then we couldn't gather the 2/3 votes necessary to override his veto, and so the." You know, and then they're talking about, let's put together a commission like the base closing commission, where the president, members of Congress pick some people and they sit in a room and they decide how to slice and dice domestic spending or raise taxes or both. And then Congress has no choice. They just have to vote yes or no, which is a great way to prevent members of Congress from having to do their jobs and having to do the hard work.